Spoiler warning for Cobra Kai Season 6. I just finished watching Cobra Kai's series finale, and was I disappointed? Did I think the show messed up their ending like so many other shows? The short answer is no. But if you remember, Cobra Kai had been ridiculed and mocked in the past few months for a number of reasons, one mostly being Daniel.
We don't teach these kids to fight with anger. That's not the Miyagi-Do way.
But I found that the main reason people didn't seem to enjoy the show was because it may have felt a little bit directionless and that it probably should have ended way sooner. Yet, it felt as though the writers knew this. They understood that the current state of the show couldn't be drawn out any longer and needed to be resolved. Even some series, such as Stranger Things, a cool story, had people feeling like it should have ended earlier. But what makes the ending to Cobra Kai so great is that the writers resolved all characters, arcs, and stories in the show in a satisfying way. Now, it's easy to call anything satisfying, but what made Cobra Kai's ending satisfying exactly? And how can we replicate it in our own stories? Well, we had to understand what resolving truly means. Resolving conflicts and arcs in a story doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a happy ending for everybody. Your character has wants and needs, and by the end of the story, they should have what they need instead of what they want in order to resolve their arcs. Johnny wanted to have a dojo for himself ever since the beginning, but even though he got that in the end, it was truly about him overcoming the identity of a loser who couldn't change. The writers understood this and remembered Johnny's main motivation ever since the start. Another masterful example is Robbie's ending in the series. Robbie did not beat Axel and didn't get the tournament win that he has always wanted. But he still got his career in the end, which is why he even fought in the tournament in the first place. He even learned to notice all of the good things around him, and that's what got him over losing. Now, it would have been easier for the writers to have just made Robbie win like the audience was expecting to happen. But he didn't, and I'll touch on that concept of writing an unpredictable ending in a bit, because that's one of the key reasons why Cobra Kai's finale was so great. To put it shortly, great endings resolve all of the arcs and characters' stories by giving them what they need by the end instead of what they want. This comes by understanding who your characters actually are, which leads me to my next tip. One of the biggest shows of all time, Game of Thrones, slam dunked their ending in a dumpster fire by forgetting who their characters actually were and making them unrecognizable. I won't go too into it because most people have talked about it already. The main point is, it is crucial for you to know what your characters act like in this point of the story, what their main goal had been, and the thing they have to overcome. This is probably the most important tip in the video because it is valid for your entire story. Failing in this area will have your audience fail to connect with the characters and immediately reject your story. It's been shown in the series before that Sam is an empathetic character most of the time, so when it came to the point where she forfeited in order to let Tori have a shot of winning the Sekai Takai, it was believable that she would actually make that sort of decision. The writers also remembered that Kreese was an actual character and not a cartoon villain that's always lurking around in the shadows. His main story was about how clinging to the past means facing the good things as well as the bad things that had happened before. Recognizing this, the writers expertly resolved Kreese's character in a satisfying way. Knowing your characters throughout the story goes a long way, and if done right, you'll find that your endings for your characters write themselves. Finally, for the most hard to pull off tip in the video. Now, I watched Cobra Kai's finale twice in the same day. Once with my parents and again with my friend. And I made sure to ask them occasionally before a fight would happen, who do you think is going to win? For the Robbie fight, my friend thought Robbie would win. For the Johnny fight with Sensei Wolf, they thought that Wolf would win. And it made me realize that when I was trying to figure out what made the finale great, it hit me. The ending was unpredictable. Sure, there has got to be some people who knew the whole time that Miguel, Tori, and Johnny would win in the end. But it really didn't feel that way when I was watching it. The show had a history of being unpredictable. Back in Season 1, it was entirely full of twists. Season 4 had Miguel re-injure his back again when we all thought he was going to beat Hawk and fight Robbie in the All Valley again. In the finale, the writers could have totally let the Iron Dragons win, or Cobra Kai lose at any point. But here's the thing, it is easy for a writer nobody like me to just tell you to write unpredictable endings and leave it at that. But for such an easy thing to get wrong, I'll tell you the exact strategy on what to use to make good unpredictability in your story. It looks like this. On one side, you have your character, and on the other, you have the conclusion for your character, where they are trying to end up in the story. Now, bad unpredictability in stories looks like this. They'll change the conclusion for their character just to make their ending shocking or unpredictable. Or they'll change the character, how they act, or their motivation, which we already established before is probably one of the worst things you can do when trying to end a story. But here's what a good unpredictable ending looks like. The writers will change whatever is in between those 2 points to plant seeds of doubt in the audience's mind. That's all it is, really. Not trying to get the audience to guess wrong at your ending, but to have them doubt that their guess is even right in the first place. Let's look at the Axel vs. Robbie fight and see what it would look like on this chart. The writers knew that Robbie won't win this fight, and they know his motivations. This remains unchanged. But the fight goes like this. Robbie does good for a bit, but then Axel gets the better of him. Robbie begins to come back, but Axel breaks his leg. They changed the events in between who the character is and the outcome of the situation, and that led to no one being able to know exactly what will happen. Let's sum it up. To write amazing unpredictability in your stories, don't try to get the audience to say, "I didn't expect that to happen." Instead, get them to say, "I should have known that was gonna happen." It's not the outcome of the situation that makes for good surprises. It's the events that happen leading up to it that make good surprises. Now, those 3 tips is what I genuinely believe made Cobra Kai's ending awesome, from a writing standpoint. That being said, for as good as it was, I still have some minor nitpicks. So in the scene where they're trying to train for Axel's fight, they're trying to train Robbie, we get to see Hawk and Dimitri, and they pull up with this Iron Man, this Tony Stark tech that is just unreal. Like, aren't these guys like just going into like university, right? Like, it just felt so unreal that it took me out of the show. Like, like come on, like that tech is so advanced where it's just like programming Axel in real time is weird. Another nitpick was that Yasmin, for some reason, got back with Dimitri, even though he freaking cheated on her. Which, don't even get me started about that. That's like freaking stupid. I don't know why I even did that. Just made it more unlikable. It's almost like they just threw her in there, like they couldn't forget about her. Like they couldn't just leave it like, oh, they broke up. They had to bring them back together for some reason. I don't know who was asking for that, but it happened. That's just one thing that bothered me. Another thing is like when Kreese and Silver were fighting on the boat and the entire boat explodes, right? At the most, the top is gonna explode. But like the whole thing explodes, like it's almost like they try to make it like it was like Godzilla vs. Kong with the whole boat exploding. Like, come on, man. I mean, I felt like the special effects artist could have taken a break or something. Like, just have the top explode where all the gas tanks are, and not the whole thing, because that looks ridiculous in my opinion. But putting that all aside, I am very happy that Cobra Kai didn't botch their ending, and that they remembered who the story was mainly about, Johnny. It's great that they actually ended the series, but still left room for spin-offs, with Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do still being a thing, as well as the dojo in the jungle still being active. Overall, the ending was so good that it made me a firm believer that the show didn't have to end earlier.